Okay, everybody, good evening and welcome to this Council of the City and County of Swansea's meeting, and it's held here in the Council Chamber on the 11th of July. And the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. If I can ask you, Mr. Evans, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I have apologies from Councillors Matthew Bailey, Peter Black, Rebecca Fogarty, Nicola Furlong, Paxton Hood-Williams, Michael Locke, Angela O'Connor and Bridget Rowlands. Are there any others?
Okay. You okay, Hugh? Okay. The next item is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. And can I hand you over to Deb Smith, please, to give you some advice? Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I've sent an email out to councillors today. There's no obvious matters on the agenda that would give rise to any interest, but if anybody has anything to declare now on any particular agenda item, please let me know, and you need to fill in a form. Anything? Yes. Yes, Councillor Rice.
Thank you. It's item 10 and it's personal interest as an employee of a recipient of SPF funds. And it's relating to question 8, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay, we move on then to item 3, which is the minutes, and it's to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting as a correct record, and they're on pages 1 to 32. I'll go through them page by page. So page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 and 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and that's it. Okay, all in agreement? Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item is item 4, and that's the written responses to questions asked at the last ordinary meeting of council, and they are just for information. We move on to number 5, which is the announcements of the presiding member. My first one is a sad one, unfortunately, and it's with sadness that I refer to the recent death of Sarah Davis, who's the former Lady Mayoress and wife of former councillor W. John F. Davis. Sarah was Lady Mayoress from 2000 to 2001, and Sarah was also the sister-in-law of our councillor Robert Francis Davis. Our thoughts are with the family. Can I ask you to stand for a sign? Okay, thank you. On a slightly happier note, it's the announcements of the King's Birthday Honours for the citizens of Swansea who have received awards in the Birthday Honours. The Officer of the Order of the British Empire, the OBE, for Andrea Isabel Albert, lately the President of the Prison Governors Association, for services to HMS Prisons and Probation Service. It's Rachel Ash, Founder and Managing Director of the Mental Health SWIMS, for services to people with mental health issues. The next is Peter Brian Mizzen, Chief Coast Guard, Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, for services to maritime safety. Mark William Spencer Portsmouth, for services to sport in Mumbles. and Matthew Lee Tyrrell was postmaster for services to the community in Penllygare. The next is an announcement for the Social Services Care in Wales Accolades Award for 2024. Born into Care is a multi-agency project run by the Child and Family Services of the City and County of Swansea. The project supports parents who are at risk of having their child taken into care, from the early stages of pregnancy through to the child's birth and beyond. Parents are offered enhanced antenatal care, parenting support and practical help, intensive home visits and group support. The project uses a strength-based, solution-focused approach and places families' voices and experiences at the heart of what they do. I'm delighted to report that the Born into Care project recently won the Building Rights Future for Children and Families Award at the recent Social Care Wales Accolades Awards in 2024. So can I congratulate them, please? And I have the show. So well done, everybody. I believe they're in the public gallery. Well done, everybody. The next announcement is the amendments and corrections to the Council's summons, and it's item 4, the written responses to questions asked at the last ordinary meeting of Council. It's page 34, the top of the page. Amend the reference to Council 6th of June 24 to read Council 6th of March 24. Item 8, recruitment of a community town councillor to the Standards Committee, which is on page 56, the top of the page, and amend the reference to Council 6th of June 24 to read Council 11th of July 2024. The next is written responses to questions asked at the last ordinary meeting of Council, page 34, top of the page, to amend reference to Council 6th of June 2024 to read Council the 6th of March 2024. And the last one is the membership of committees, and I believe you've all got the form in front of you. It's the political groups have submitted changes to the membership of the committees as an amended report has been circulated. And that's the end of my announcements. Okay, thank you. The next item is the announcements of the Leader of the Council, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you very much, Presiding Member.
Councillor Stewart, I got Chris Evans with his hand up, sorry. Councillor Evans.
Hi, yes,
Apologies.
sorry to come in. I missed the start of the meeting, and I just need to verbally let you know of an interest. I've got a personal interest only in agenda item 10, question 3.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Stewart, carry
No
on.
problem. Thank you, Presiding Member. My first announcement gives me great pleasure to congratulate our 3 new MPs, Tony Antonazzi, Torsten Bell and Karen Harris, on their parliamentary election success within Gower, Swansea West and Neath. And obviously, very, very pleased to see a resounding victory in terms of the general election. And we hope, obviously, to see good cooperation between Swansea Council, Welsh Government and the new UK Labour Government taking place over the coming years. I'd also like to, on behalf of Swansea Council and the citizens of Swansea, thank the Returning Officer, Martin Nichols, the Deputy Returning Officer, Hugh Evans and Alison O'Hara, the Electoral Services team and the Design and Print for their dedication and professionalism during the recent parliamentary general election. I think they provided excellent support and work again this time. I would also commend the Electoral Services team on the rollout of their most recent innovation aimed at assisting blind and partially sighted voters. It's a QR code that was placed on every ballot booth in Swansea polling stations. The QR linked to an audio version of the ballot paper for Gower and Swansea West constituencies, again assisting those with sight impairment to be able to vote. So again, our thanks to all of those who took part. One other further update was just to say in terms of the responsibilities in cabinet portfolios, just to say there's an update just in terms of the title, no change in responsibility, which still sits with Councillor Smith in education, but the 21st Century Schools Programme and Quality in Education Programme is now the Quality in Education Programme, Sustainable Communities for Learning. So just so you all have the formal update, as I'm required to do, doesn't change anything. It's still a responsibility within education. And then finally, we had hoped to bring forward a motion to Council today, but it wouldn't have met the urgency rule. But I thought I would update Council and ask for all members to support this. There is a campaign to promote the danger of flying rings on beaches. So these are the frisbee style devices that are sold in some shops. Flying rings are cheap products derived from the solid disc frisbee. They are sold by many retailers at a price as little as £1 and are often lost or discarded on the beaches. Seals, especially younger ones, are extremely curious animals, and if they place their heads into the rings, can quickly become entrapped, and it is almost impossible for the seal to escape or dislodge themselves. Over time, the ring will start to cut into the animal's flesh, causing pain, suffering, infection, and inevitably death. The North Atlantic grey seal is the predominant seal species sighted in our waters along the Gower coast. The UK is around 38% of the global population, and Gower has a small percentage of that number. Human disturbance is a particular issue for the seals that visit Gower, and so the threat of flying rings posed to this compounding stresses for the seals in Gower and beyond. The rings can travel great distances when they're in the ocean as well. We intend to raise the profile of the dangers of flying rings and to prevent further suffering to seals and animals. And in doing so, we'll be encouraging local retailers not to stock or sell them. And again, we would have liked to do a motion tonight so the council could have expressed its will on that one. But we would hope you would all encourage retailers not to sell these. And again, it's important, especially during the summer months when children and families will be visiting the beaches, that they're discouraged from purchasing these items, which can cause such great harm. So thank you, Presiding Member, for allowing me to do that.
Councillor Stewart. Councillor Holly.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Officer. I cannot think of anyone who would not object to that Lord's motion. I think it's extremely important, and I'm absolutely sure everybody would support it. I'd go as far as to say if there was a possibility at some stage that we could look at a bylaw, then I think we should. I know it is, I can see the legal officers, he's turning around to the back of her head, but I know it is quite difficult, but I think it's well worth us doing it. And I also like to congratulate Democratic Services like the leader has done for the work they did at the general election.
Thank you, Councillor Holly. Councillor Jones, Clinton Jones.
Yeah, absolutely, totally support that motion, because not motion, but the suggestion that we all support that, because I think it is vitally important that we actually make sure that we can stop the sale of those goods in our shops around Swansea and discourage it being used. And of course, I would support a bylaw as well if one was possible.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I got Councillor Rice first, and then I bring the rest of you in. Okay, Councillor Rice. Pardon? Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm calling Councillor Rice now. I'm giving him a new name. Is it okay?
Councillor Rice is on the
Sorry.
screen looking down on us all today. Right, I'd like, for completeness, to give the Uplands Group support for the motion. As I said, it's a little thing that can make a lot of difference. What I might suggest is, as it hasn't been moved as a notice of motion, possibly we could mention something in the minute under Leader's announcement that it received the unanimous support of all the groups.
Okay, Councillor Walton.
Yeah, just a point of information. In the latest education newsletter email that went round, there included a poster, which if you're able to print off and put up, that would be great. Thanks.
Councillor Will Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think obviously it makes sense, this potential notice of motion. However, obviously being in a ward where we have beaches, it's not just the only problem. We've got barbecues, there's glass on beaches. Every year have, sad story about kids either stepping on a hot barbecue or cutting their feet. I have mentioned it a few times to a scrutiny working group to look at bylaws on beaches in general, so not just this one thing. So I think it was turned down this year, but maybe if we could look at bylaws on beaches in general, because I don't think this is the only issue. Thank you.
Councillor Richard Lewis.
I have to say that when I was head Cato's Cash and Carry, this was one of our best sellers, and we sold thousands of them all over. It wasn't Gower and Mumbles, it was Morriston, it was Town Hill, it was everywhere. The people were coming in, the kids there. It was a tremendous toy, and I think you're going to have a very hard job to stop it. I think sometimes when you try and ban something, more people come and will use it. But as I say, I think what you're doing is a great idea, but certainly from my point of view, I couldn't support this.
Councillor Stewart.
If I could just respond to a couple of points. First of all, can I thank the group leaders for their support. It is our intention to work cross-party on a motion to bring in September. But again, anything we can do during the summer months to discourage would be really appreciated. I think on Councillor Lewis's note, what I would say is, again, it's about choice, isn't it? And what we do is discourage the ring type frisbees, but the solid frisbees are more less dangerous in terms of the fact that they can't go over the seals' heads and stuff like that. And obviously, we're aware that some retailers have already taken the step to stop stocking these items.
Nobody online, is there? Okay, we move on to the next item then, and that's public questions. Just to remind everybody, it's 10 minutes, okay? And it's following the change to the council procedure rules. Public questions are not permitted in relation to item 11, councillors' questions. However, they are permitted in relation to them in item 10, councillors' questions, and they were submitted prior to the constitution's change. Okay, so the first question is Mrs. Susan Jewell. Thank you.
Sorry, can you hear me okay? Yeah, Susie Jewell from Safe Technology Swansea. You may remember that most of you were served notice by Safe Technology Swansea in 2019 regarding your legal responsibilities for any health or environmental harm caused by the increase in wireless radio frequency in Swansea. The insurance companies have not changed their position, still likening wireless radio frequency to asbestos and smoking. So individual councillors are still personally liable. Your previous argument stating that you take your lead from Public Health England, now called the UK HSA, whilst always morally wrong, has now been found to be also illegal. Your legal responsibilities as a competent authority mean you are legally obliged to abide by the European Electronic Communications Code. Our question is, how and when do you intend to honour these legal obligations? That's the first question. Should I go on to the others or wait for a response?
Yes, you can if that's easier, or would you prefer to respond? Answer them all together. Yes, you can carry on.
Okay.
Thank you.
As a competent authority, how have you been keeping abreast of the increasingly alarming evidence, legal developments and problems surrounding involuntary public exposure to wireless radio frequency? You have been supplied with multiple peer-reviewed, published and verified scientific data illustrating the environmental, social, health and safety damage caused by wireless radiation from hundreds of scientists and doctors by Safe Technology and other residential and concerned groups and individuals repeatedly over the past 7 years. The anticipated problems have occurred in abundance, and there are now hundreds more legitimate scientific and anecdotal studies showing harm to people, animals and the environment, as well as illustrating the resultant exponential increase in energy usage. The third question is, the proposed Living Lab 5G testbed will cover the area where many of the people you represent live and work. So as a competent authority, you have a legal duty to ensure their health and safety. How do you intend to carry out the legally required environmental, health and safety, human rights, and data protection impact assessments? Exactly what form will the public consultation process take? And will you assure us that the ever-growing electro-hypersensitive community will be meaningfully involved so as to conform to the Equalities Act 2010? Thank you.
If I can thank the questioner for the questions. In terms of the responses, these are ones that we have given great consideration to, and obviously, as you'll know, and as I'll say now, there is a live planning application at the moment. So in terms of question 1, there is a live planning application which we understand was submitted on Tuesday the 9th of July 2024. The council will need to determine that application within an 8-week period. In terms of how the council determines that, the council is guided by the International Commission on Non-Ionising Radiation Protection, known as ICN IRP, on these matters. Their aims are to protect people in the environment against the adverse effects of non-ionising radiation. They develop and disassemble science-based advice in this area. In terms of question 2, it's a similar answer in that Swansea Council are guided by the ICN IRP, which closely follows the radio frequency and electromagnetic field, RF-EMF, related scientific research, and any new outcomes relevant to the health will inform the evolution of these guidelines. Swansea Council's digital connectivity relationship manager keeps abreast of all new research and guidelines. All digital infrastructure deployed must be accompanied with an ICN IRP certificate. And then finally, in terms of the 5G testbed, the 5G testbed is a Swansea University initiative. They are responsible for conducting the public consultation with local residents to inform them of any works planned and details of the projects that it will involve. Swansea University have stated that no research is currently scheduled. Only participants who have given their prior informed consent will be part of any of the projects if they do happen. Okay.
Okay, thank you. The second person with the question is Phil Slater.
Well, I'm Phil Slater and asking a question on behalf of the Mayor's Friends and Residents Group. The council's debt was reported as £693.8 million. Given the council's insurance specifically excludes any liability coverage for claims directly or indirectly relating to wireless technology, and the council is deemed the competent authority and thus ultimately legally responsible in this regard, as cited in a letter to councillors dated the 27th of May 2024, has the council taken this exclusion into consideration in their financial risk assessment in the 5G rollout and the 5G living lab and testbed, especially in light of the growing number of court cases?
Thank you very much for the question. The council's debt, as you reference, is to fund only capital and to clarify, is irrelevant to any of the risks of revenue costs. If there were to be any such claims and potential costs, no local authority is permitted to borrow for a revenue purpose. The 151 officer has confirmed that he is satisfied based on all the advice given that the risk and scale of the financial impact is fully covered by multiple mitigations and protections built into our wholly robust budget planning and strategic financial management.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? No? Okay, we move on to the next item then, and that's 8, and that's the recruitment of the Community Town Councillor to the Standards Committee. Can I call on Mr Evans, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Recently, we had a resignation on the Standards Committee when former Town Councillor Carlo Rabiotti resigned from Gosenian Town Council. which in turn caused a resignation and a vacancy with the Standards Committee. The process has begun to recruit a new community town council to sit on the Standards Committee, but to make things a little bit more streamlined in the future, I asked that the terms of reference of the Standards Committee be amended to authorise them to shortlist and interview community town councillors for the post, and then to make a recommendation to council as to an appointment.
Councillor Mary Jones.
I got no problem with it because obviously on the appointments committee we used to do them, but will they have had their, we did, didn't we? I did something for Standards Committee.
I take the point. The Standards Committee, sorry, the Appointments Committee have never dealt with these. You're thinking of co-opted members to the Standard Committee, which is a completely different process.
Okay, any more questions? No? Okay, the recommendation is on page 59, and it's that any amendments to the council's bodies submitted be approved. Can I have somebody to move on second, please? Okay, thank you. Can I have a show of hands in support of it, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. We move on then to item 9, and that's the membership of committees. Can I call on Councillor David Hawkins?
Yeah, thanks, Presiding Member. I'd like to formally move the amended sheet that has been circulated today. So nothing to add to the report. Just to formally move.
Please. All in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. The next item is councillors' questions. Just to remind everybody, it's 30 minutes. Okay. So the first one is from, just find my page. The first one is from Councillor Mike White, please.
Chair, I've got no supplementaries.
The next question is from Councillor Chris Evans.
No supplementaries.
Thank you. The third one is from Councillor Chris Holly.
I haven't, but I think Councillor Sam Bennett has.
Who's, sorry? Oh, Sam. Okay. What's my day? Sorry, this and Sam. And Sam. Okay. We'll have Sam first and then we'll have Mike. Is that okay?
Sorry, my question was, my supplementary was question 2, not question 3.
Okay, sorry, I missed you. Okay. Shall I take quiz 3 first and I'll come back to you, Sam, if that's okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Day. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Presiding Member, and thank you for the response. Obviously, things have moved on since we submitted the question, and I would like to pay tribute to Swansea University's engagement with local ward members and also with members of the public, where they held an open day where people could drop in and ask questions. But I wonder if the leader could tell us the timescale for developing the master plan, which is referred to in the response. Secondly, what engagement will there be with local members on that master plan? And the third one is that whilst we welcome the commitment to ensuring that things remain the same in terms of public access to the King George V playing fields, what will be the mechanism for ensuring that the playing fields remain open for the public and for future generations? Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, thank you, President. And thank Councillor Day for the question. Obviously, the announcement has taken place earlier this week around the Ospreys' intention to move back to St Helens, and that is part of the considerations for us within the overall sports science park. You then have considerations around the cricket and where we would house cricket, and obviously there'll need to be separate discussions on that because the rugby and the cricket cannot coexist in a redeveloped ground. So again, there's discussions around that. Councillor Day referenced the fact that there's already consideration around King George V playing fields, and he may be aware that the first part of the campuses project, a £15 million investment, there's already changes taking place down there with new facilities being created. We've extended the arrangements around the Wales National Pool and are currently going through a process of looking at a new arrangement between ourselves and Swansea University to give that facility a long-term secure future and a new model for its operation. And I mentioned the national pool specifically because, again, with our arrangements that are already in place, we have red lines around public access to the facilities that we fund. And that principle will be carried through into the new arrangements because on behalf of the taxpayers of Swansea, if we're investing in a facility that's jointly run and managed with other bodies, we want to maintain that public access to those facilities. In terms of the Swansea-based sports park, well, obviously the developments are already underway for part of that, but it has the potential to be much bigger. We'll be commencing discussions with a number of sporting bodies in due course around their potential involvement in the sports park. And obviously there's a number of land ownerships along that stretch of Swansea Bay, from the university to the health board to ourselves. And again, we'll need to work with our partners to see what that master plan potentially could deliver. It absolutely goes without saying, Councillor Day, that all of the local members will have input into the discussions as we go through that process of developing the master plan and then looking to deliver the various elements of that master plan.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I was late joining in person. I had a question, supplementary question on question 1. Is that okay?
Bennett, because he's on question 2, so I will permit you to use it this once, okay? Okay. Councillor Bennett, sorry, I missed you the first time. It's a bit difficult to see online, sorry.
No worries, thank you. Just as we're on the topic of events and the environment, I just wondered if it's possible for the Cabinet member to give an update on the air show achieving net zero.
Councillor Francis Davis, our leader.
No, I suppose if I'm going to be honest, with the amount of planes flying over, I would say it's impossible to get net zero other than just cancel the air show. Or was it, I didn't quite hear you. That's the trouble when it's coming over the speaker. Is it just the stands?
I was referring, I think there was a commitment that the air show would be attempting to achieve net zero. So I wonder if there was progress on that.
There's been a lot of work going on with the stands and how we approach the show and the support to it as regards the planes in the sky. Other than them all being hydrogen, it's impossible to get net zero with planes. So I'm not going to make up any answer for you. So the answer to that is it's impossible if we still wish to have the air show in Swansea.
Okay, Councillor Gordon, I'll allow you to come back on question 1.
Thank you. Could the Cabinet member please confirm the nature of the works at Croft Street? It was really pleasing to have that update, and confirm that these will bring the housing to the Wales quality standard. And can she also confirm that the same level of support will be available for residents during the works as with the previous Matthew Street works? Because given the fact that there's such significant changes were implemented then, I was surprised at how smoothly things were done and how much they felt supported.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and grateful for the question and the opportunity to outline the significant works that we're going to be doing at Croft Street. I can confirm that both high-rise blocks will be refurbished to Welsh Housing Quality Standard. At Croft Street, the 1 to 11 low-rise will also be refurbished, and the high street flats and shops. So it's the whole site, I'm pleased to say. The refurbishment will include new roof coverings, structural repairs and improvements to the existing buildings, Walls will have new cladding, the high rise to the highest fire safety rating of new cladding, and the walls will be insulated to improve the thermal efficiency. The appearance will be similar to the flats at Matthew Street. There'll be new aluminium windows, new secure communal entrance doors. Internally, they will have new kitchens and bathrooms for each flat. New ventilation, new gas boilers, communal wiring will be renewed, including communal lighting, which will be more energy efficient. Some properties will have some complete electrical rewiring and a sprinkler system throughout. The new passenger lifts, as I'm sure ward members will appreciate, the current lifts stop on alternate floors, for each lift covering one floor. Both lift shafts will cover every floor. So if there happens to be a fault with one of the lifts, the other lift will more than be able to compensate to carry the residents to each floor. And we'll also be converting the ground floor into 8 new flats. And in terms of the local environment in the area, the garages are to be demolished to open out the area, improve visibility, and hopefully guard against antisocial behaviour and dark corners, create more overlooking, make it safer. And landscaping will be included, improving paving around the entrances and soft landscaping to improve circulation and general appearance in the area. Also upgrades to CCTV systems where required. And just to give the level of assurance, we will engage with our residents and our tenants, as we did with Matthew Street. I think it's fair to say what the housing team do very well is engage with local residents and make sure they're fully informed throughout the scheme about what will happen, when it'll happen, and about what improvements they should expect. And I thank Councillor Gordon for her kind comments, which I'll feed back to the Housing Department about how they engaged through the Matthew Street developments. Gratefully received. Thank you.
Councillor Phillips.
Just to add to my colleague's question, I met by chance recently the public support officer that's working for the company that's on the theatre, who are going to be doing the work on the Croft Street flats. She was very interested in providing facilities similar to what they had done in the earlier development, providing daytime relief facilities. I wanted to have a discussion with you about the empty shop in next to the community hub, where they had a proposal that they would like to develop that into kitchens and potentially bathrooms that people could use during the day. In terms of the ability to leave their properties when it's being refurbished, I was very taken with their engagement about wanting to engage with residents and to make the work as trouble-free for them as possible.
Okay, I thank the councillor for the question. I'm happy to engage with you on what the potential possibilities are for the use of the shop. I think when you mentioned welfare facilities for the construction company that were working on the Palace Theatre, they are currently using the former pub. And the plan, as I'm aware, is that they will continue to use the former pub when they carry out the construction on the flats. But in terms of use of the spare vacant shop, I'm sure myself and Councillor Anthony would be happy to sit with you and ward councillors to discuss that further.
I think that we have the freehold of that block of shops, do we not? Because there's a shop at the top, the last one, the big one, where work has already started, which is full of DVDs, which I'd like to see whether there's anything I want. They were interested in using that particular facility rather than giving up their staff centre, which is in the pub. It seemed like a really good idea to want to pursue.
Happy to further discussions around that arrangement offline with the councillors in Castlewood. Thank you for the question.
Okay, we move on to question 4 then, and it's from Councillor Fiona Gordon. Any supplementaries? No? Okay. Oh, so job just... It's Councillor it's so small, it's a job to see them. Sorry, Councillor Sam Bennett.
Thank you. It's been a couple of years now since residents were informed that the council had the money for the parks in SA1. I just wondered if there was an update on timescales for the parks that are planned for SA1, noting the series of works that have been done for parks across the rest of the city.
Yeah, Councillor Ben, just give an update. It is part of the 106 agreement. We are at this actively working on that scheme. So once I get a further update, I will notify you of any progress.
Councillor Evans.
I just wanted to confirm which park in West Cross is titled West Cross Woods that's scheduled for this year. Is that the Fairwood Road Males Park? Because West Cross Woods is somewhere else.
It's the one that was requested by the local ward members, which officers have been working with, and it's the West Cross Woods. I can't say that I can identify it exactly, but it is working closely with the ward members who have requested that.
Okay, thank you. We move on to question 5 then, and that's from Councillor Peter May.
Councillor Rice has questions.
Okay, Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. I just wanted to thank the leader and the officers involved for putting together such a comprehensive schedule of information. But the first question I really want to ask, and I've got two of them, is the first one is, given the likely potential overspends in current projects, capital projects that we have now, and the new announcement that appeared in the last few days about the new civic centre, which is going to be across the road in in the Old St David's area, is there enough money in the bank or the borrowing that you've done so far to cover all of these? Or are you hoping for the new Labour government to give you a bit more money? That's question one. And question two, you'll probably see as well, Leader, that from 2016 onwards, there's been about £300 million worth of unsupported borrowing, which isn't related to the HRA, which has been undertaken during your period of leadership and being the finance officer. Given the roles and significance of these roles, being, if you sense, the Prime Minister and Chancellor at the same time, do you think that, given the pressure that these roles give, it might well be worth dividing those roles and re-establishing a cabinet member for finance who can look after these matters for you? Thank you.
You can only wish, Councillor Rice. No, on your first question around, I'll deal with the second question first in terms of the split of responsibilities. No, I've assumed the role of a finance and strategy cabinet member throughout my time as leader, and the reason I've done that is to ensure that there's central oversight by the leader of spend in all departments, and therefore it isn't a devolved responsibility where I can therefore support all of my cabinet colleagues in their aspirations to make sure that they're able to deliver. The strategy side of it sits with that, because then I can help also reinforce the delivery aspirations of my cabinet members to make sure that we deliver as an authority. And I think that has worked really well, given the record of delivery that this administration has had throughout our time since 2012. In terms of is there enough money, then the answer to that is yes, because the fact of the matter is that we borrowed, as you know, at historically low rates. We haven't deployed all of that money yet. There are clearly issues related to the national position that was forced upon us by the government at the time. We won't go through all of the details of the Liz Truss short premiership, but essentially it meant that interest rates went up significantly. So our borrowing before that looks even more appropriate, given the cost to that. Essentially, if you break down the 690 odd million pounds that is sitting there, You'll know that a large chunk of that is related to the buyout of the HRA. Another large chunk of that is from borrowing that was inherited by this administration. But the key thing about the borrowing we've taken out with the borrowing taken out previously is that we've been able to do it at historically low rates. And therefore, we've been able to borrow more than twice the amount at half the cost. And that's where it becomes important for value for the taxpayers of Swansea. You also, which isn't in the sheet or the answer there, you've got to realise as well that we set aside some £14 million of funds each year to repay historic borrowing. So over the period, we have taken out new borrowing, but essentially we've been putting money aside to pay off the old borrowing. But that doesn't come off our balance sheet until it's repaid. So actually, when you take all of those things together, that number is less than half of what's printed. That's the reality of where we are. For those of you who've already had a look at your cabinet papers for next week in terms of the outturn reports, you will also see that through the efforts of Mr. Smith and his finance team, our capital financing is £16 million less this year than it otherwise would have been. A massive saving, freeing up money that we will make announcements of in terms of potential investment on top this year. There is there is a reference in there to lender option, borrower option as well. And I just thought might be useful, given that Councillor Rice has raised this point about, is there enough money? How much does it cost? I was looking back, actually, through the decisions of the previous administration. And between 2006 and 2008, they took out some £90 million worth of lender option, borrower option loans. Now, for those of you who don't know what these are really risky loans because they are taken out at one rate, but at some point in the future, the bank can decide unilaterally to change the rate of the loans. And in recent months, Mr. Smith and his team advised me that unfortunately we were being pressed by the banks to go from the set rate to a new rate which is more than double. So they were taking the rates up by more than 2%, meaning that we would have, if we didn't have the money that we'd borrowed and that the money that was available to us through prudent financial management, would have had to accept those higher rates. The administration supported Mr. Smith in his action to pay off over £20 million worth of risky loans taken out during the previous administration to protect the taxpayer of Swansea. There would have been an immediate impact of around 400,000 to the taxpayer, an ongoing annual impact of around 200,000. So that's what proper management of finances can do. I'm not sure, Councillor Rice, whether you were the Cabinet Member for Finance at the time, whether you were involved in the decision to take out the LOBO rates, or whether you were unaware of the borrowing that was taking place at the time. I hope you would have been all over your brief at the time. I'm certainly keen to continue to hold the brief of finance to ensure that the visibility is there, and I work closely with Mr. Smith on a daily basis about this. But just to say, the number at the headline is often misleading, and when you get into the detail underneath, you can see how well a job Mr. Smith and his team have done, and this administration has done in terms of making sure the taxpayers of Swansea get value for money. And let me be clear, we are not taking out any LOBOs, and we would not go down that route because we feel they're too risky for the taxpayer of Swansea.
Councillor Matt Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I was just going to ask the leader to comment on the reckless borrowing by the previous administration, but I think he's covered it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we move
Presiding
on.
Member, I'm more than happy to repeat it.
Okay, we move on to the next one then. Is from Councillor Will Thomas.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Obviously, school reserves aren't as high as they were in the past, but 4.5% interest down to 0.1% interest is a huge amount of money across the authority for all the schools' income. So I think this is worth spending a bit of time on. I'm a little bit confused on the reply. So it says in section A, it should be noted that many years ago, individual schools took the decision to remove themselves from the school's corporate banking contract. Now, how many schools is that? What percentage of schools is that? And later on then, a bit further down in the paragraph, it says, this is not the norm for primary schools across Wales. So does that mean that the Swansea Authority is different to the rest of Wales? So I'm a little bit confused about that. And then in section B, it says that a lot of the comprehensive schools have been working with the council and have moved their money to invest in higher rates in interest access accounts, which presumably is a higher interest account which they can have access to whenever they need it. So my question there is, why aren't the primary schools doing that? And, you know, can we work with them to maybe tell them a bit about these higher interest rate accounts that they can access? Can they access them? So there's a few questions there. And my last question is, are they actually allowed to move from Lloyds, or do they have to stay with Lloyds Bank? Because I'm a little bit confused about all the other stuff above, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, thank you, President Member. My understanding is that there's no requirement to stay with Lloyds, but I'll come back to you on that. But that's my understanding, and that's not a requirement. In terms of the percentage of schools, again, I can come back to you with a written answer on that if I haven't got the answer to hand. Yes, as the answer says, the position in Swansea appears to be different to the position in the rest of Wales. I don't know what has caused that or what historical factors, but it was they are historical factors, and I will happily ask officers to update us on that and come back on those three questions, President Member.
Thank you. And if we could also look into if the primary schools have been engaged and made aware of these higher interest rates as well, please. Thank you. Thanks.
Mr. Smith, did you want to come in on this?
I was, with permission, presiding member, just going to advise that, yes, it is the case that individual schools may choose anyone they wish. The vast majority are still with Lloyds. I think the fundamental problem is the banks are interested in big sums of money, not so interested in relatively small sums of money. And what might feel like a big sum of money to an individual primary school is, alas, not very interesting to individual commercial banks who make individual decisions. They are interested in the rates that we make on the wholesale money market. Unfortunately, almost none of them are big enough to be attractive to the banks in terms of the rates that are on offer. We are unusual in terms of being 100% checkbook managed, in the sense that you can't have it both ways. We give the money out to schools, that gives them maximum flexibility, but there have undoubtedly been downsides as a result of the moves in the banking market. And so I thought it perhaps appropriate just to advise on that. It is a common misconception that they're bound to us. They definitively are not. So in giving some assistance to Councillor Robert Smith on one of those questions, they can go anywhere they like if anyone will take their money. The problem is the banks are not that interested in many of the sums for what they see as effectively mini small businesses and charity type things. You know, they might offer an attractive headline rate to an individual, and they'll offer an attractive rate to a big organisation such as ourselves. Unfortunately, our schools are in that squeezed middle, alas.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Councillor Rice, is it a legacy hand you got up, or did you want to come in with a question?
No, I had my hand up from the question before. I just wanted to ask another question. Hopefully you give me a bit of leeway to do that, given some of the earlier things. Just quickly, in terms of response to the leader, I wanted to ask a question of him. Is he aware that out of the £24.5 million worth of annual interest we pay, only £6.5 million of that relates to the time of the administration? And just for clarity for him, he's probably aware by the stage, what he said earlier, is that no new political decisions for any borrowing were made while I was Cabinet Member for Finance. And actually, the only thing that happened there was a early repayment of £20 million. Thank you.
I'll repeat what I've said previously. The headline figure is misleading in the way that it's made up. You'll know that there were decisions to buy out the housing stock, which placed a further burden on the council in terms of its borrowing, but it was the right thing to do. And the borrowing that we've taken out is at historically low rates. We haven't deployed all of that capital. And as I alluded to earlier, given the prudent management by Mr. Smith and his team, the capital repayment this year is some £16.3 million lower than otherwise would have been. And it's not just what you borrow, but the rate at which you borrow it. I'm aware that during the previous administration's time, borrowing was taken out at rates up to 8%. We borrowed at 1.9%.
Okay, the 30 minutes are up for the questions. Okay, sorry, Councillor Phillips, I will allow, because you did have your hand up before the 30 minutes, okay, so I will allow you to come in.
I wanted to ask a question on Mr. Smith's very interesting answer to the story about his comments about school reserves. They're not getting them because the amounts they've got individually with Lloyds are too small to interest a rapacious bank, even though it is largely still owned by the UK taxpayer. Would it be true to say, Mr. Smith, if the primary schools all returned to the council, to bank through the council, would the aggregate sums of their money then attract a higher rate of interest than the one they fail to get individually?
Mr. Smith, thank you.
A very simple answer to a hypothetical question. The answer would be yes, because any sums that are held with us are held in a pooled fund. The corollary, of course, is they would lose all of the flexibilities of being a checkbook management school, and that's the bit that makes us unusual. So it is it's a double-edged sword, and obviously future interest rates may be lower than current rates and all the other bits that you normally get if you had a radio advert, all terms and exclusions, miscellaneous applied, etc. But certainly at its simplest level, they are disadvantaged in terms of commercial rates that they can get from individual banks as a result of the freedoms and flexibilities they enjoy being checkbook schools. Any that are us, you can see in terms of other things that we manage, we pool rates for both borrowing and investing onwards, and are able to reduce the net cost reported, as the leader has alluded to, in terms of outturn for the general fund. You will be pleasantly surprised when you read the Cabinet outturn report, the revenue outturn report of Cabinet, as to how little their cost was to the general fund of servicing what on paper is a very large amount of debt. So you're absolutely right, Councillor, they would, but I suspect schools would not wish to give up their freedoms and flexibilities as checkbook schools. That's but they would benefit, I'm certain of it, because they would benefit from our wholesale counterparty lending rates.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, we move on to item 11 then. That's the second part of the councillor's questions. Again, we've got 30 minutes, okay? So the first question is from Councillor McEttrick.
Yeah, just to say thank you to the Cabinet member for the answer. Two questions really. First one is just on the timescales. It's great that these new staff are coming in. When are they coming in? Are they already in? And when can we start to see that impacting on the services? And then the second one is, there's this comment about in addition to our standard staff structure. So is this is extra new roles, I presume. Is that going to have an impact elsewhere, or are these being taken from vacancies elsewhere? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, for your questions. Firstly, can I apologise to mainly our residents, but the members regarding our miscollections? There are three factors which are causing these problems. Firstly, sickness. As you know, operatives are out on the front line services. These employees are out on all sorts of weather, rain or shine. They suffer from colds, flu, but being the physical nature of the employment, they put their bodies, muscular and back issues are the biggest problems to cover these. We depend on agency to cover. Secondly, another big problem is no shows. This is something we can't predict. And when this happens, we encounter problems getting agency staff to cover at such short notice. To resolve these shortages, we are in the process of employing 20 further operatives, which will be put into a pool, and also this will help us to cut down on the use of agency staff. I think you will also agree that when we employ these 20 new operatives,
We just can't put them on the ground. We have to give them undergo so much intensive training, and this is going to take a while. Secondly, we all know that we're having problems with the ageing of the fleet. As stated back in May of last year, I announced that we were in the process of procurement. As of the 1st of this month, we have taken delivery of 17 new RCVs in a total of being 26 tonnies for the first delivery. 8 of these vehicles are already in service. There are further 6 were delivered last week and being commissioned for use next week. There's 3 more due for delivery this Friday, which is tomorrow, and will be in service at the end of next week. Our second tranche of vehicles, 20 new RCVs, are 2 times 26 tonne delivered next week and being commissioned for the use of the week after. There are 2 electric 27-tonne RCVs expected by the end of August, early September. There are further 8 26-tonnes due in October, November. Then a further 8 16-tonne expected January, February. On closing, can I put on record that I have all the confidence in my waste management team and the operatives. The current system is fit for purpose and is already achieving the statutory recycling targets at the same time as the WLGA benchmarking is showing that we are one of the most cost-effective management services in Wales. On the time schedule of when these 20 operatives will be employed, can I get the information and give it that to you in writing, please? Thank you, Presiding Member.
Councillor Peter May.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Anderson, for the answers. Prior to the advert for the 20 operatives, which are the closing date of the 7th of June, I believe, am I correct in saying that in the previous council discussion and questions we had a traineeship program a few months ago, where we were promised that they would bring the extra staff? How many of those trainees did we manage to retain? Hence, alleviating the need for the 20 extra operatives. Has it been, was that a success? So it's just basically the outcome of the traineeship program. The second question I have is vehicle fleets and staff no-shows can't be a unique issue to Swansea alone. Are the number of delayed collections or the level of delayed collections a Swansea problem, or is it being replicated Wales-wide?
Yeah, those are extra questions. Can I ask the member? I'll look into it and give him a written reply.
Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Great. Thank the Cabinet Member for the response. What I'm finding is all the problems seem to happen in the latter part of the week. So the breakdowns are okay on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but when you're speaking to people, certainly when I drive around, certainly in my ward and certainly in Gower, and I notice in Pennard and so on, that is every week. So every Friday we get huge problems, and very often they're not then picked up until the following Wednesday, which does cause a lot of trouble. So, I hope it's going to be solved soon, because people's patience is actually wearing thin on it, and I'm sure you understand that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, we were having issues, but these are being resolved now. We have put some extra staff in. I think you'll find, as of from last week, the missed shows are starting to slow down.
Okay, Councillor Phillips.
I wonder whether the Cabinet member could tell us whether Councillor May has benefited from this rigorous training programme that we are going to give to our employees, or is he just a natural born bin man? And if he is the latter, could he not be pressed into service when we have shortages?
Stuart,
Chair, can I just add to what the Cabinet member said, and just a point of clarification for Councillor Lyndon Jones. I guess it depends what day of the week your collections are and which areas the teams are in, because certainly from Morrison's perspective, we see it on a Monday because that's our collection day. So if the route is missed or part of the route is missed on a Monday, it's always on a Monday because that's our day. I think one of the things that I know the Cabinet member has already investigated is if we do feel that there's a potential issue that day, whether or not the teams can alternate the way in which they do the route so that not the same street is hit, because in operational terms they usually start in the same place and end in the same place, and if they haven't had enough resources to complete the round, it's always the end of the round that then gets the impact. So we're looking at that, but I mean, again, I compliment the Cabinet member on the actions he's been taking on both staffing and investment in machinery. And just on your point on trainees, I think my recollection was we took on about 60, 65, and I think it was 50 to 55 or so that then went on to full-time employment.
Councillor Stewart. Councillor Mike White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to contradict Councillor Jones from Bishop Ward, we've obviously been affected because of the unfortunate situation with, as I say, no shows or vehicle issues, or sometimes even down plus 2 roadworks within an area, which is out of the control of the department. But can I say, it's not just about going out and collecting refuse with operators. There's issues here about the vehicles, about the mechanism of operating these vehicles. There's an issue of manual handling training because of what the staff are having to deal with. So as they say, so it is an intensive induction service because we got a duty of care to those staff that's going to do that job. Thank you.
I wonder if I could ask, thank you, Presiding Member, I wonder if I could ask Councillor Stevens if we could request that the bin men slow down. I do question, are they practicing for the summer Summer Olympics this year, because they tend to be racing around the road, and I often pick up the food caddies. They might have picked them up from property number 21 as an example, but they seem to drop them down at number 28, and it seems to be a race. It would be ideal if we could actually ask them to slow down. And subsequently, with the food caddies, I picked up on yesterday, as an example, I picked up 32 bins that were absolutely destroyed. So it's a case of them actually just dropping them down. Yeah, thank you very much.
Maybe even less collections if they slow down.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you for the question. Yes, if we slowed down, you'd be complaining more miscollections. I do understand we do find operatives that actually are not our permanent staff. Sometimes it's agency. They're in so much of a rush, they're just slinging them back. But I can assure you, our officers, when a complaint comes in, they reprimand them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah, thanks for that. I say as an Uplands group, we work very well with the cleansing department. Every request we satisfactorily answered, so we're on your side, actually.
Okay, there's nobody online. I can't see. Okay, we move on to question 2 then, and ask from Councillor Holly.
That's one.
Councillor Day, is it?
Is she like me?
Or is it Councillor Fitzgerald?
Oh, anyway, it's this she got.
Councillor
The-
Fitzgerald's got a hand up as well, Chris, so I don't know which one you do.
It is up, is that right?
Yeah.
It's all right.
Councillor
Chris, Councillor Holly can reply initially. I'll ask following his comments.
Sorry, Councillor Fitzgerald, I don't think any of us caught what you said then.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you,
Hello?
but we didn't hear what you said, sorry.
I said if Councillor Holly has a question, he can go ahead and ask and I will follow on. But I can ask, so I will. What I was going to query was, does the system that we now have and is being improved understand Welsh names? Because my experience in trying to get through, and I hope Hugh Evans won't mind me mentioning his name, my attempts to get through to Hugh Evans were disastrous. I had to repeat the name several times. I thought I'd repeated it clearly, but the suggestion I had from the robot was, did I want an Emily or an Emma? It clearly did not understand Hugh. So please, can we have some reassurance that, Welsh names are not a mystery to the robot who does all the answering these days? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. There's no answer to that. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Lewis, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm just looking at Hugh Evans and thinking Emma Evans now, and I'll never see him in the same light again. The answer to the serious answer to Councillor Fitzgerald's question is that the new automated system did initially have some terrible issues with certain names. And for some reason, it had an issue, as I was alerted to, with Robert Francis Davis. It didn't like to accept that name. So I think Robert's telephone was probably not ringing as much as it normally would at that stage. But there is a facility that you can introduce any names that they have issue with. You can introduce something to the system so that it does recognise those names. So if anyone does come across a name that is difficult to be recognised, let us know and we can update the system accordingly so that it will recognise those names. I'll make sure the team know that Hugh Evans is a difficult one, and thank you to Councillor Fitzgerald for flagging that up with us.
I got Councillor Day at first. If I can bring Councillor Day in first, then I'll bring Mary in.
I'll leave my day to it.
Okay. Councillor Day.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Clearly, I mean, the serious point about all of this is that we are there to provide a service to the public. And if the public aren't able to get through to raise questions or issues in relation to the provision of various services, then it becomes difficult. So the question I've got is relating to experience that I've had actually where calls have been directed to my phone. The latest one was somebody inquiring about council tax, and they were diverted to Councillor Mike Day. Now, I would wish I had the expertise to be able to deal with the query, but and I wanted to just say that the staff in the customer service have been very helpful in being able to deal with that. But what assurance do we have that these issues are being dealt with? What guidance can we be provided with as councillors if we do get misdirected calls? And thirdly is that where we've had people complaining to us as councillors, it's where they've actually got through to the right number, but the member staff hasn't actually been there because of the hybrid working. It's sometimes difficult for them to actually speak to a human being about the query that they have. So those are my kind of questions. If I could ask if the Cabinet Member would be able to respond to that, not necessarily today, but maybe in the future, to give us guidance as councillors how we deal with misdirected calls, etc.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Day. I do think we are having some sound issues this evening, Presiding Member, but I think I did catch the points, the relevant points that Councillor Day was trying to make. So the first one was, as I understand it, a misdirected call to your home number in terms of council tax. I had a similar issue actually with my office line, where somebody was ringing me in the office in the Guildhall about a council tax issue and said, is that council tax and benefits? So I had a similar issue, reported it, and it was dealt with promptly. As I understand, it was dealt with you as well, very promptly by the team. So we will get some glitches, if I can call them that, in the system. It is a new telephony system, but I can give reassurance that the whole telephony system, so not just the initial contact centre, but also the departments where you are diverted from the initial contact to a telephone system in a specific department, that is all going to be under review with Ness Young looking at the system just to see if there are any blockages, if there are any reasons why there are abandoned calls. And I know that the team look very closely, as is referenced in my response, to peak times with peak issues. So, for example, in May, we had peak number of calls in terms of commercial waste because there was a policy change. And so everybody was calling the contact centre to clarify things. And you do see those peaks and troughs as policy changes are administered and implemented. So we keep an eye on how the numbers are going up and down. But I would like to take the opportunity to remind members and for them to hopefully remind their residents there are many, many other ways of contacting the council. The telephony system and the contact centre is only one. There are email opportunities, there are links on our council website, there are short forms that you can fill in to report issues, and those are really successful. So if there are common issues, I would recommend that members divert the public to those other forms of contact. And of course, we'll also have a Stover coming online where we'll have that face-to-face contact as well. And I know that our librarians are very helpful, our district housing officers equally. So, you know, there's many ways of contacting the council, but we are looking always to improve the telephony system and the contact. We realise that customer service is at the heart of everything that we do as a council, and it reflects on us if it's handled well. I think that the numbering system, the queuing system is working really well. We've had some good positive feedback. And I'm really pleased to see that we've implemented that, but we will continue to strive, as it's stated in our customer service charter, to improve the customer experience and get to a point where we get feedback from the public. How well did we do? How can we improve? And using that feedback for that continual improvement. So I'm grateful for the questions. I understand some of the frustrations, but I ask that you bear with us while we're implementing a new system and that we will reach the best customer service we can possibly reach. I'm confident.
As long as your name's not Hugh,
Thank
you'll
you.
be okay.
Would I be able to come back just very briefly and say thank you for and I think we all appreciate that there will be teething issues. The number of clients or residents that we deal with have inability, shall we say, to use some of those alternative channels because they're not IT literate or whatever. So that's where I've had complaints from people who've not been able to use. So I've taken to completing forms online for them, as it were. But the next question then would be relating to, are we confident that when a call is referred through and located to the right department, section, whatever, that there is somebody on the other end of the phone to take the call?
Just to refer back to what I said in my first response, that we are carrying out a review of the contact in terms of telephony across the council. There will be different responses from different departments. Some departments do operate an answering phone service, and then that call, the message that is left is picked up and dealt with. Different departments operate in different ways at the moment, and what we're looking to do is try to strive for a consistent approach across all departments and services so that we've got a one council approach to communications. So if you are aware of any issues where somebody is transferred and then there isn't a person at the end of the phone or a facility to leave a message, please do make us aware and we will investigate that.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to the next question then. Is from Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Do you mind if I just make a comment first? I noticed on these questions there are only 4 being submitted. And yet when we went to Constitution Working Group, there was a fuss made by Councillor Peter May and Councillor Lyndon Jones about how many questions they could put in. Well, it's rather amazing. They haven't got any in at all for this month, and they're supposed to be keeping an eye on what we're asking for supplementaries. So we are going to ask supplementaries, even if they're just very banal. But we did put our 4 questions in just to make the point. Thank you for the answer. And it is actually very interesting because obviously I live in the west of the city and we are desperately in need of a park and ride. We did have one many, many years ago on the Wreck at Christmas time, which was very well used. And I do understand that from that part of Swansea West, there isn't a lot of available land. But I do urge you to please keep looking because it is getting difficult to park in the city centre. It is an excellent scheme and I wish more people could do it. Going to Swansea North Park and Ride, that was difficult to access. It wasn't quite in the right place. But I think I noticed in the Cabinet papers, you're talking in a transport part of the Cabinet about buses coming down High Street and making a bus lane. Would that then help to have a park and ride coming into the city from the north?
Thank you, Councillor Jones, for the question. So in terms of the Swansea West, the teams are, I do intend to ensure the teams do keep looking for a potential site, but there are quite a lot of logistics around that and feasibility on the site and patronage and things like that. In terms of the north, you are right. There is some work going on with the Northern Sustainable Bus Corridor that could potentially, but I would happily, explore that further with the team anyway. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Move on to the next question then. Is from Councillor Jeff Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you to the Cabinet Member for the reply. I refer to the site-specific master plan being worked on by our Urban Splash. Any redevelopment will, of course, incur cost. You mentioned the public sector hub located in Copper Bay. Will the council be liable for any financial contribution to this project, and to what extent would that financial liability extend? Thank you.
I will give you a written reply on the financial figures because I don't want to give you a wrong figure. But obviously, if we are going to have a hub on the northern side, it obviously will be financial consequences for it. Do you have a written reply?
Okay, thank you. That's the end of the questions then, okay? We move on to the next question. Sorry, the next item is the exclusion of the public. All in support of that, please. Show of hands.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is... Okay, it's over to you, Mr. Evans. Yeah.